integration. You're saying freedom of association to me is, I don't know how you're applying that. Like freedom of association mean the freedom to be against integration seems to be what you're saying.
Yeah, Village A decides that it's only one group. Village B decides it's only another group. Village C decides it's only.
So it's still zero sum. You're saying either no. Why freedom of association? But when you're saying that's just another way of saying that you're allowed to be anti-integration.
No, it just means that everyone gets their space to do what they want, and they can be left alone, where they can be free from harm from other groups.
But I mean, are you just using different words to say that people get to be anti-integration?
Why can't
the same society? And okay, we know the Jews are on one side of it, but there's nothing to do with the science of integration.
Somalis are net takers when they come into our territory, and they cause massive crime, and they spread radical Islam. All that stuff is deeply harmful to us. We lose, they gain. It's an irreciprocal relationship. So to avoid the harm they cause, they need to be in a separate spot. We don't integrate well. They're completely different culture. Our values and their values are different.
We're live again.
So, the Somalis and the Swedes are completely different cultures. We don't integrate. That axiomatically, we look at the world and operate in the world in a different way. If I had a bunch of Somali neighbors, I'd get killed in my house if I weren't armed to the teeth, because they don't value peace, order, and prosperity to the same degree I do, because they're R-selected and I'm K-selected. We don't want to live with them. And they don't mind living with us, provided we're weak and we're suckers and they can just take from us, because they've never built a civilization. All they've done is been pirates and thieves for millennia. And you can read stuff from the Ethiopians talking about other Africans. The Ethiopians have hated the Somalis for thousands of years. You can read their stuff from 2,000 years ago talking about all the pirates in the Gulf of Aden, which were the Somalis. You can't mix all these people together in the same territory without boundaries to allow these groups to have their own spaces. If you put them together, there can be conflict. We need to minimize conflict. If you're trying to increase conflict, we have problems. I want to minimize conflict because I don't want Swedes and Somalis harming each other. And the best way to prevent people from harming each other, just like when you're dealing with little 5-year-old kids at the playground that keep fighting, is the teacher comes in and says, Johnny, you stay over there, and Timmy, you stay over there so you don't fight with each other. You play in that sandbox, you play on those monkey bars, and do not go and play on each other's parts of the playground so that there's fighting.
That's I hear your argument, but I'm trying to flush out the different point that I'm trying to get you to admit that it's zero sum, that either integration wins or it doesn't.
Well, you can have some places where there is some degree of, I don't know if you want to call it integration, because if you look at the spread of Islam, it's more just like, it depends what you mean by integration, like race mixing, I guess. It does happen.
Yeah, so why? How could it? I just said I'm looking at it saying, like, whether you're right or wrong is a separate issue from, is it a zero-sum game where either integration wins or it loses, and all your arguments of why you're on one side of the issue or not is separate from my issue that I think how is it zero-sum?
It is zero-sum. It is zero-sum, which makes it funny that you're essentially promoting an R-selected strategy, which implies infinite resources.
I'm not promoting any of them. I'm saying just wanting to get to a deeper issue of these ideas. I'm saying if you want to debate integration, we can, but I mean you're kind of
Well, yes, by accepting
arguing
money,
a different topic than I'm more interested in arguing about
by
whether
accepting money
integration
to
is
allow
zero sum or not.
populations in that shit out infinity kids, i.e., are R-selected. Jewish organized Jewish power is promoting an R-selected strategy. So, do you know that this is a zero-sum game? Because we appear to be the only ones who understand that fact.
Well, yeah, I mean, it goes like to that Robertson guy's thing on JF in his class presentation. He said, okay, the R-selected people the K-selected people are going to have an abundance of resources for a smaller population, and the R-selected people are going to have less resources for more people. So you're naturally going to have a migration pattern of the R-selected people to go and live among the K-selected people. And so, I mean, is that scientifically that makes sense that the K-selected people will have sparser populations with more resources, and the R-selected people will have denser populations with less resources, and hence there's going to be a natural migration pattern of R-selected people to go live in the areas of K-selected people.
And because K-selected people don't need to have their style of life degraded to cater to R-selected people. K-selected
I'm not interested in your moralizing. I'm talking about it from
it's not about moralizing, it's about survival.
Was saying if it's about survival, you could recognize the point that there is
violence and disorder. We need order in our communities, and I don't tolerate disorder. We need space for us and space for them where we aren't having constant conflict.
I'm asking you if you agree that the natural order is that the R-selected people will continually try to live amongst the K-selected people. That's the scientific fact that this thing. There is nothing you could do to change the fact that there'll be a natural migration pattern of R-selected people to living amongst the K-selected people.
Well, they're going to want to do it, but the K-selected people can also stop them.
They could try.
Yeah,
that's why I think it's zero sum, because it's okay. You could try.
I know, but the R-selected people don't get that because they're breeding like there's infinity resources. That's the whole point. You're the ones not doing the proper strategy here. You're saying, let's just bring in a bunch of people who shit out infinity kids, and then they'll just vote everyone else into submission. We'll be in power forever. Ha, ha, ha.
Yeah, I will not share power with people like that because my culture will be destroyed.
Yeah, but saying you're going to be like Josh Neal and saying, like, I mean, in essence, like you agree it's zero sum and you're losing.
And we need our space, and then we're not fighting. I want peace, order, and prosperity. My solution brings that. Your solution, or whatever this other solution is, will not.
I'm trying to argue the science of it.
I am arguing the science of it. You keep people that are
you're moralizing and preaching, trying to win people over to your side, as opposed to
you're also moralizing, Doovid. You're moralizing. You're saying the R-selected strategy should dominate, and Gandalf is saying
I'm saying that. I'm saying
dominate. What are you saying then? Aren't you pro-multiculturalism?
You are.
So I'm not arguing in favor of multiculturalism. I'm arguing about the dynamics of populations, and basically I'm trying to get to the point of whether it's zero sum or not. It doesn't matter what side you're on of moralizing or preaching, and saying that
it's zero sum. It's a finite planet. It has to be zero.
So
yeah, so I mean, so that it comes down to my argument earlier about like Armageddon and violence, and basically what you're saying is. Yes, I mean, the only way to protect the K-selected territories is essentially violence.
No, it's boundaries.
But I mean, boundaries are violence.
No, they're not. Boundaries prevent violence.
No, I'm saying you're saying if the natural order of the R-selected people is to migrate to the territories of the K-selected people, how are you going to stop them from? So you say, okay, boundaries. We'll use boundaries, and therefore we'll prevent the R-selected people from moving to K-selected people. But boundaries are another word for violence.
No, they're not, because there's a fence. There's a horde of R-selected coming in, You fire one shot in the sky and say, if you don't turn around, this will be fired into the crowd. The crowd is scared away because they are selected, and they move
No, because
away.
they are selected, they could afford to lose population. It's opposite. You're saying, I mean, because they are selected, they could afford much more casualties.
Well, that's their decision. The thing which minimizes violence is the boundary. You're totally wrong on that point.
No, you're saying. I mean, essentially, I mean, I think you're, for whatever reason, you have some sort of dissonance block to admit that you just said what I said. That,
no.
that the only way to prevent the R-selected people from migrating towards the K-selected areas is violence, and then you said
borders are not violence. Borders are borders. Okay, violence is violence. You can't equate one to the other. Is the border or is the wall around Israel, is that violence?
Well, yeah, I mean, borders are.
So why aren't you constantly opposing that instead of worrying about this other stuff? Because if that's your biggest issue, then it's literally the only wall out there other than the wall of China and the Himalayas.
I don't endorse it. That's not what Doooovid does, is endorse and impose things. I'm a thinker. I'm analyzing ideas. And whether I endorse or oppose it makes no difference.
I want boundaries. So
I mean, the idea is the idea. If there's a science to it, I'm saying you could do like, differential equations and population studies. And I mean, actually, I did them. I spoke to JF about trying to reduce this to a differential equation. It's saying, like, you have a certain force pressure that is pushing R-selected people to move to K-selected territories, and then you have a pushback of. I mean, it's basically what do they call the differential equations? Where the predator-prey model. It's basically a form of a predator-prey model where there's a certain force pushing the R-selected people into the K-selected territory, and then there's a force of the K-selected people trying to prevent the R-selected people from coming into their territory.
You build an intimidating border that looks.
I'm not
really
asking for your. I'm not asking for your scenarios of how the K-selected people try to protect their territory, because it's essentially a predator-prey type model where you have a force and pressure, that there's a certain force pushing R-selected people into K-selected territory, and then there's a certain force of the K-selected people pushing back, trying to prevent the R-selected people from entering that territory. And how you go about doing that, or try, like whatever, that's not the point of trying to analyze these forces and saying, and essentially, if there's a science to it, it doesn't matter. I mean, saying you could agree, like, I mean, me and you, even though we might disagree on the fundamental issue, we could agree on the science, and maybe even quantize like the force levels, what's the force of R-selected people moving to K-selected territories, and what's the force of the pushback of K-selected people from trying to prevent R-selected people from taking over their territory.
This is why, well, it's survival. R-selected people and K-select.
If it's predator-prey, I mean, it's zero sum. Like, I mean,
not predator-prey. It's two apex predators vying for control.
Yeah, so I said, okay, sometimes predator-prey is not always zero sum, where it goes 100 to. I mean, they're usually not. Usually, there's equilibriums, and then there's dynamic equilibriums. I mean, you want me to do a screen share of the predator-prey model? I mean, do you have a predator? I mean, do you want to do a screen share of it?
Our selected people want to prey on us. We don't want to prey on them. They don't offer us anything. So it's not a predator-prey model. It's a self-defense mechanism for an organism that is being parasitized.
Yeah, I'm saying you're the prey. I mean, you're saying in essence, from the way you're looking at, the R-selected people are the predators and the K-selected people are the prey.
Well, right now they are, because the K-selected people are the ones who actually get stuff done and have really high output. So the R-selected people are like,
people. That's what I said at the beginning. The K-selected people, the nature of the K-selected people is to have large resources in sparsely populated areas, and the nature of the R-selected people will be to have limited resources in densely populated areas, and hence the pressure of migration of the predator, where the R-selected people are going to move into the K-selected territories in order to take their resources.
It's not really I mean, they want
differential equations. If you remember, there's dynamic equilibrium. So you could have a certain point, like 90% K, 10% R, and then you might have your next equilibrium point where once it pushes past that brink, the next resting point might be 50-50, and then if it pushes past that, it might become 100% R.
It doesn't reach equilibrium.
Never
But there's
can.
different equilibrium points. So you're saying like
The only way you get equilibrium is with K-selected people in charge. That's how the logistic differential equation works.
you can't have K-selected
Because
people
R
in charge of
selected
R selected.
goes
I mean, saying it's
against
predator prey. You can't.
conditions
You're
on
not
the
going to have.
planet. R
You're not going
selected
to have
goes
one in
against.
charge of the other. I mean, that's why I'm saying it's
Yes,
zero sum.
right now, the R selecteds are in charge of everything.
Because of
And look
democracy.
how that's going.
Yeah, I mean, in
How's that going?
democracy,
Everything's
in
turning into a
democracy, the
desert.
nature favors our selection.
No.
I get that. I get that. Democracy is basically something that pushes people towards more R-selected behavior because there is some amount of flexibility there in terms of how ideology shapes behavior. You can't look at it exclusively in a matter of predator-prey because you have two groups that are both apex predators vying for control of resources. So they're both essentially looking to be predators of the resources, and they're competing with each other for domination over those resources, control of the means of production, so to speak.
I'm going to search and see if I can find a nice graph that might represent some sort of
I don't know why, my ancestors come from Minnesota, some of them. If they were alive today and saw Omar representing them, they would die of fright or anger or sadness. Their descendants and their relatives have been propagandized to death to live with people whose only results from being there is stealing $100 million in childcare, sending it back to their moms to fund operations to blow up malls in Kenya, or to cause massive crime waves such that they will go kidnap a 5-year-old of my tribe, throw him over 3 balconies, and thank God the kid survived, but with permanent brain damage. That's what they've given to our people, and they've given nothing else but violence, chaos, and theft. That's all we've gotten. We give them all of their resources to fund their families. That's irreciprocal, and I hate being taken advantage of. I hate our goodwill being used against us. That makes me angry. Because I like order.
Why? Because it's like getting mad at a snake for biting you.
Well, I didn't want them let in there.
Yeah, but if there's a science to it and saying the pressure is, it doesn't matter what you want. I'm saying like we're talking science here, and science doesn't care about your desires. It was saying if there's a natural force that pushes our selected people to move to K-selected territories, there's nothing you're going to be able to do that's going to stop that pressure. You might be able to successfully build a wall and stop them, but the force of our selected people trying to move into the K-selected area, that's a scientific law.
No, the scientific law is that our selected apex predators will always die because they'll consume all the resources, and then the only way our selected
resources
people
of the K-selected
under the
people.
domination of K-selected people. So if the R-selected people continue to be in charge, we're all dead eventually.
Resources need to be stewarded very carefully. This is also why people who desire to live high on the hog should have no role in statecraft. If you can't be happy with a middle or slightly above middle class lifestyle and you want to be in government, no. Because like someone who like Nancy Pelosi or Barack Obama who become centimillionaires from being in politics, don't you dare fucking get rich by being in politics.
Let me try to do a screen share. Like, I mean, I can't find really a good graphics, and this is actually highly mathematical, these models, but it's probably gonna look something like this. And I mean, here if you're talking about real predator prey models where you have one species eating the next, but I mean, here's a biological study where you have what Jennifer might be saying, where you have some sort of cyclic coexistence. So either you go 100% to like in the graph here, like I guess the pink where it becomes all prey, I mean, all predator, where the prey is eventually all eaten and there's no longer any prey and it's all predator, to having some sort of coexistence where you could have some sort of equilibrium between predator and prey, and that could be at different points. And I can't find the kind of graph I'm looking at where you show kind of there's dynamic equilibrium where usually it shifts. So it could be like 10% predator, 90% prey, and then the next equilibrium point was 50-50, and then the next equilibrium point be 90-10 predator prey, and then if it goes past that, it's going to become 100% predator.
This doesn't work. This doesn't work because who is the predator and who is the prey can switch.
Well, that could be also, and you could do that in a graph. And I'm using a simplistic model, and like I agree with you, but I'm saying from the way we're looking at it right now, you're kind of laying it out where the R selected are the predators and the K selected people are the prey because of the resources. And you're saying, but your cyclic, your coexistence might be at some level where Gandalf is talking about the wall or some sort of subversion method where the K selected people through some sort of means of intelligence or whatever are capable of becoming the predators and staving off a higher population. But I mean, you could, in theory, and I've never seen any scientists do this, I mean, because this paper I'm showing here is just the theory of predator-prey density in general, usually talking about different species, not the same species. If there's we're talking about the same species where elements in the species take an R selection versus K selection, is where the predator-prey model is usually between different species. So I don't know how that would look when you're looking at a predator-prey model between the same species who choose R selection or K selection.
It would need to be significantly more complicated as a model because you'd need some way for the predator and prey to change. And we don't, I mean, even under the best of circumstances, we wouldn't be looking to predate the R selects the way they would want to prey on us, right? So it's not a good model for it because there's just no way to explain the complexity of what we're describing.
Well, okay, there's no current model that I'm familiar that does what we want, but it doesn't mean a model can't be created. And I'm saying that's what, rather than like moralizing or something or talking strategies, like we're trying to come up with a way for the K people to win, I'm trying to model it. I mean, that's essentially because I'm a man of ideas. Like I'm not trying to choose the side of the K people and help them win.
No,
I'm just trying to model it.
You do want the K people to win because everyone's dead if they don't, right?
Well, maybe not. But I'm saying,
well, definitely, I can prove it with science, right? So it's not
only if you model it. Saying first you have to model it.
No, I can just tell you, we live on a finite surface. If our selected predators are dominating, the entire Earth will be reduced into a desert shithole, just like large parts of the Earth have already been reduced to. Hint.
Yes, I mean, predator-prey doesn't always result in extinction. Usually that's why, I just took down the graphic, but that's why you have to shift because the predator relies on the prey. So you reach the point where it becomes almost all predator, and then there's not enough prey for the predators, and then the predators start. I mean, so usually you have these equilibriums where it goes up and down.
Cannibalism. Insane cannibalism is what will be the end result.
Usually predator-prey models, if you're looking at I don't know what example you want to look at where
there aren't any.
Well, I'm talking about of different species in nature where you have one thing that eats another thing. One thing that survives by eating the other thing.
Right. We don't eat our selected people. That's the R selected ones. They're the insane cannibals who will consume anything. But we're not like that, right?
Well, that's why I'm saying. I mean, I'm just saying in general. I'm trying to take the predator-prey model and use some form of it to model this R versus K selection thing. So, I know they're different models. So, just saying, let's understand the predator-prey model, where if you have two species, one that survives by eating the other. And if it's I don't know what example of two species, one that lives by eating the other, do you want to use? What one do they typically use? It's been so long, I'm hitting a blank.
Well, it's not a very complicated model. It has to do with what the rate of reproduction is for both, as well as the rate of consumption. And then you model it based on whether there's going to be enough of the prey to eat for the predators to be in balance, right? You can easily model a what you call equilibrium solution for that, because all you need are the numbers to match up so that there's always enough predators for the prey to eat. But that doesn't apply in this situation because it's two groups of apex predators competing for the same finite set of resources.
But usually those models will come with like a sine type function where one population increases and the other one decreases, and then it'll hit a certain point where the one population is increased, the where the predators keep on multiplying and they eat all the prey, and there's not enough prey to eat the predators, so the predators start dying off. And as the predators start dying off, the prey population starts increasing again until the cycle repeats itself. So that's usually the dynamic level of most nature that doesn't result in extinction, where you have this constant increase in predators until it becomes too much, and then the predators start decreasing, the prey starts increasing, and the cycle just keeps on repeating unless you have some sort of event that leads eventually to an extinction where the predator goes extinct, where the prey goes extinct because the predator finished off all the prey. And then usually that leads to the predator itself going extinct, because you have a symbiotic relationship where the predator could only survive as long as the prey is there also. And that's similar to the R versus K selected.
No, it's not, because ours are parasitical. Because of how many kids they produce, they're de facto parasites, right? So it's not the same.
Yeah, but it's like the predator-prey model where it's saying like if you only had R-type people that don't have the K-type people to
we aren't animals. We control how food
off.
We control how food is made. We are not predators, okay? We are predators. We're not animals, though. We control how our food is made. We're all consuming the same set of resources. This model won't work for what you're attempting to use it on.
Well, I think it will, because you're saying that's why it's saying, okay, is it zero sum? Where it's saying it's guaranteed that eventually the R-selected people will kill off the K-selected people, and then the R-selected people will die off. So you're saying from the model predicts the eventual extinction of both sides. Because the R people will, by nature of their strategy, eventually completely overtake the K people, and once they do that, they themselves will die off. So that's what the model predicts.
That's what I'm saying.
Extinction of both.
Everyone should be begging for K-selected apex predator to take power, because that's the best.
Begging's not going to change. If that's what the
it is. Begging will make it much, much less painful.
I would say if it's a scientific model and the model predicts extinction, that's what the model predicted, and whether you could change what the model predicts or not. But you're saying currently we're looking at the model predicts extinction.
No, it doesn't. If
no,
it does not
become extinct.
No, it does not. If K-selected people are in charge, there won't be an extinction. If R-selected people are, there will be, because they'll just consume all the resources and collapse everything.
What does it mean for K-selected people to be in charge?
I.e. Dharma, i.e. breeding at the replacement rates.
70 IQ people from the Horn of Africa aren't making rules for 110 IQ people from Scandinavia. The Scandinavian, the Scandinavian
yes, they are.
The 70-year-old IQ people build Mad Maxes. I want civilization, not Mad Max.
You'd be arguing with science because of democracy.
I'm arguing
because of our selection. Eventually, our selection people will control all societies because their population is just larger, and through democracy, they will control all territories.
Because I don't want their vote being equal to mine.
Here's what you want. We're talking science here.
What I want.
But I'm trying to have a scientific conversation. I'm not interested in what you want.
People in my territory. I don't want them
like you're spazzing. I'm trying to have a scientific conversation about ideas. It's me.
Me. My self-interest. I'm getting angry.
I'm trying to talk about science ideas, and like you're just like me.
And I want borders. I want case like so I survive. Because Ilhan Omar will make me.
I know what you want. So like you don't have to keep
on repeating. I will get what I want because I need to survive.
Okay, so why do you got to keep on repeating yourself then?
Yeah, I'm just doing it for a little bit of effect. We can't live with people from the Horn of Africa in our territory. They can't be in our territory. We die if they're in our territory and they continue to proliferate. So we need to have boundaries where they go back to their territory. And they can either evolve and learn how to manage their resource base, or they consume it all and starve. But we can't be starved in the process. So we have boundaries and there's no violence. Boundaries are essential. Just like Daniel Sienkiewicz always says, we need boundaries. We need territories for everyone to manage their own thing the way they want. Their strategy of maintaining a territory is not ours. So if they're competing for the same pile of resources within the same territory, trying to get the same state apparatus under control, it's bound to lead to conflict. I hate
That's
conflict.
not how nature works. You don't have boundaries. You have dynamic equilibriums.
The dynamic equilibrium is K-selected apex predator comes, goes to little Mogadishu and says, it's pack your shit in 48 hours. The C-130s are here to all pack you in like sardines, and I'm going to dump you on the airstrip in Mogadishu, and bye-bye. It was a bad 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, you're not really talking ideas. You're just like,
there's no reason to have our selected people dominating and ruling over a K-selected people in their own territory, because the K-selected people die. And I'm one of the K-selected people. I die.
You're making so many non-scientific claims and fallacies that.
No, it's not. It's not.
You're not really talking ideas. You're just making so many postulates, fallacies, and non-scientific ideas. So you can me. Like, okay, I know you only care about yourself. So you keep on saying, like,
I don't care about them.
So you just keep on repeating yourself, and you're saying, I care about myself. I care about myself. Like, I know that. That's not what I'm trying to discuss. I'm trying to discuss ideas.
Okay, let me get back to the ideas here. Like, because I'm trying to personalize it in a different way. Maybe that's the wrong strategy.
No, I'm trying to objectively talk about ideas, and like, I don't care where you come out on your personal opinion about. I'm trying. If you're incapable of objectively talking ideas due to your, whatever your inability to objectively look at the issue, we can't really have a conversation. Because, like, I already know how you feel. I already know what you want. So you just keep on repeating yourself, and we're not advancing any knowledge. We're not having any conversation.
Okay. I'll back off for a second, because maybe I'm looking at this the wrong way. And by the way, Gilbert Salgado, don't fucking tell me what I'm fit or not fit to do. Thank you very much. Just looking at the chat. Our selected people, their job is to consume. K-selected people, their job is to produce. That's the science. K-selected people steward and manage resources to handle harsh environments. Our selected people need to proliferate to scavenge as many resources to survive a different kind of environment. Our selected people currently, in the current constellation of human biomass and biodiversity, whatever you want to call it, are, for a whole host of reasons, going into K-selected areas and getting support from the powers that be to go and consume K-selected people in their environments while they're there, like vultures on a carcass. So in this model, the R-selected
craft in politics, that it means basically by force. That's why I'm referring to like a predator-prey model, with the R people somewhat like the predators, in the case like the prey, and saying, okay, you don't want to be the prey, but you're the prey. Saying, and I'm not even looking like objectively, like, forget, don't even put yourself in the equation. Just objectively, without the fact that you consider yourself K-selected, whether that's true or not, just objectively, what's the science of it? Without even, like, let's not even put you in the equation.
Okay. All right.
Just trying to understand the science, and saying, like, whether you're RK or want the RK to win is irrelevant.
That to protect us so there isn't violence between our two tribes.
We're talking ideas, objectivity. I don't care. Like, pretend that you're not K.
It protects the R and the K. It protects the R and the K, because if the R and the R dies too.
Carrying out this exercise, that's what you're saying. You're incapable.
No. I am. Listen,
coming
into I am the K and the K must win.
Listen,
just analyze the scenario.
No, listen to it. if there isn't boundaries between the R and the R consumes the K, and the R has nothing left, and the R dies too. So if there aren't boundaries between the R and the K both are guaranteed to die.
Yeah, if there's boundaries, the R's will prey on each other, and they'll keep their numbers down that way through violence and paranoia and how they've usually run things. It'll be the same for the K's. They'll have their way of keeping things going by just not breeding above replacement rate, and so it'll never lead to the type of situation of resource scarcity that leads to the violence that is basically sort of, it just appears to be part of the social fabric, a constant sort of threat of violence in these R-selected societies, if you can call them that.
I mean, I guess you have to give examples. So, like, I'm saying, like, objectively, I don't care what you are and whose side you're on. I'm just looking for an objective analysis. So if you say, like, okay, China or India has maxed out the resource of their R-selected strategy in their territory, and so either they have to compete with themselves for the scarce resources and hence limit their population, or they have to move into K-selected areas that have resources available. That's just a, so to say, a biological, evolutionary, however you want to define it, effect that the R-selected people have maxed out the resource consumption level of their territory, and the only way for them to continue their strategy is to expand into new territories. But you have other territories where K-selected people are applying a different strategy, so hence you have this predator-prey type model appearing, in which is essentially a fight over resources between the R and the K selected strategy. And that's where we're trying to look at the science between the dynamic equilibrium between the R selected societies and the K selected societies. And I'm not looking for, rooting for one side to win or strategies. I'm just trying to objectively study the science of this battle between the R and K selected strategies and the dynamic equilibrium points.
There is no dynamic equilibrium.
Well, of course there is. I'm saying that's because it's a science, there's a dynamic equilibrium point.
Well, why is there a dynamic equilibrium point? Because it's a science.
Well, it's saying that, okay, like you have Asian carp coming into the Great Lakes in Michigan, right? Like you're in Chicago, you have the Great Lakes, and you have these Asian carp, and they're expanding, and they're it's a predator prey model where you have like Asian carp have a R selected strategy.
There is absolutely no way to have a dynamic equilibrium in the situation.
Well, there is a dynamic equilibrium thing, but
because the R selected people will
extinction is also
total control will cause a collapse of the complete ecosystem, which will cause everyone to die. Now, that's your only quote. Dynamic equilibrium is death, the maximum entropy state, but that's not dynamic equilibrium. That's static equilibrium.
Again, let's talk about the Asian carp in the Great Lakes.
They're going to come in, they're going to eat everything, and then they're all going to die because there's not going to be anything else for them to eat, which is exactly what's going to happen if this little
That's already happening in Lake Michigan. I'll give you an example this summer. There was one day around the 4th of July, one of the few days I actually went to Lake Michigan. The water temperature on the western half of the lake went down 20 degrees just in like one day for all of a sudden no reason. And part of the reason is like all like the freshwater phytoplankton supplies that are the primary producers in terms of photosynthesis of the lake are dead. So like the temperature and oxygenation levels of the Lake Michigan are already out of whack, such that a few small changes in winds and currents result in much larger changes in temperature than there should be, because the phytoplankton do a lot to regulate the homeostasis of the lake. And the homeostasis of the lake has been knocked out of optimal homeostasis because all the Asian carp are basically eating all the plankton, because there's no natural predators to the Asian carp to keep their numbers under control.
Yeah, so here you don't have carnivores. I mean, if you look at, let's say lions and I don't know what lions eat, like gazelles. So presumably the equilibrium, you need substantially higher number of gazelles than lions. That if you have a whole bunch of lions, eventually they're going to kill off all the gazelles and they're going to be 0 gazelles. So you have a dynamic equilibrium where you could have a certain number, like, 10% lions, 95% gazelles. But if the lion population increases and you have like 50% lions and 50% gazelles, that's not going to be enough to sustain the lions, and the lions will end up killing off all the gazelles, and you end up with 0 gazelles. And then once you end up with, but might not go to 0. So I mean, like, if not like an extinction, because if it goes to 0 gazelles, then you're going to go to 0 lions because they're going to have nothing to eat. So it might reach a point where you get 60-70% lions, 30% gazelles, and then lions are going to start dying off because they don't have enough to eat. And as they die off, that will relieve the pressure on the gazelles, and then the gazelle population will be able to increase. And usually in these type models, you have some sort of opposite sine waves where the lion population grows and the gazelle population decreases, and then the lion population starts decreasing and the gazelle population will proportionally increase as that, and it'll go back and forth in this reverse sine wave type pattern, like the thing I just showed you, right?
Yeah, it's just unlikely. Unlikely that K-selected predators like lions will just consume all the gazelles, because normally, like, K-selected predators, make sure that they maintain, allow for their prey populations to be sufficient enough to feed them for another season, because K-selected populations tend to manage resources while R-selected populations tend to consume resources. You have to consider that. By the way, Gilbert Salgado, we don't hate white people. We just hate the toxic ideology of white supremacy. Usually people like you assume that our existence is white supremacy. So that's the way social justice warriors always claim it.
So the lion gazelle model doesn't work because in this case, the lions are the predator and they're the K-selected, and the gazelles are the R-selected and they're the prey.
This is more like a bunch of hyenas nipping at the heels of a lion.
That's a better analogy.
Well, I'm saying there's a bunch of scenarios, and we're going to, eventually get to humanity in the various human groups that are R or K selected, and the interplay among them. And just to understand the topic, we're looking at various, models where, okay, the carp they're herbivores, they're not carnivores, but because they're eating up all the plankton, they're eating up all the resources, and because they're an R selected group, they just keep on reproducing and they keep on eating up all the resources, and hence they're causing the other fish populations that are not R selected like that to go extinct. And presumably, like, there's nothing to stop it. I'm saying the Asian carp are just going to keep on proliferating until there's no plankton left, and then everyone's going to die. Right, that's what people are worried about. Saying why shouldn't the Asian carp, according to their strategy, just keep on pumping out babies until all of the resources are gone and everybody dies?
Right.
That's why you manage the environment.
Everyone should want K-selected people in charge, because that's the only way anyone's going to survive.
We're saying there's an equilibrium. So okay, the lions.
There's no equilibrium because the R-selected strategy is a violation of natural law, in the sense that if you have an R-selected apex predator on a finite surface, it will necessarily lead to desertification and
You're saying
eventually
the Asian carp they're definitely not a violation of natural law. They're part of natural law.
They will eventually, if they are allowed to continue with no predation, will kill.
You're not going to moralize on the Asian carp. Asian carp.
Not about moralizing. It's
Asian carp are going to
alive or not.
They're just going to keep on reproducing and eat the plankton. There's no moralizing on what you're not moralizing.
Is life good or not?
Asian carp, I hate you, Asian carp.
Is life good or not?
Carps are going to carp.
To be alive or not? Is that moralizing? And no, it's not moralizing. I'm just stating facts. Yeah, there won't be any natural law because everything will be dead. And to have natural law, you have to have life.
Yeah, but say it doesn't make the Asian carp bad fish. They're just.
I never said anything about being bad. Okay, that would be associating a value judgment on being alive. I just stated.
Yeah, they're just following their strategy. So it's saying, like, okay, but you're looking, it comes back to a free will type thing. So humans, is there free will where our selected humans could change to being K-selected humans, or is saying that's not a free will element? Our selected humans will continue to be our selected, or is there a possibility that our selected humans could switch and become K-selected?
It doesn't appear that way. They can only have their habits curtailed by more dominant K-selected people. Although over long periods of time, yeah, you can have.
So then it should fit
general-
into some sort of predator-prey model. If that's the case, that our selected
No,
K-selected
because it's
people.
not predator prey. It's two groups of predators vying for the same finite set of resources.
Okay, so you model two predators. I mean, you don't have predator-prey models. Don't have to be just one predator and one prey. You could have models where you have multiple predators and multiple prey. So you're saying R and K selected people, we're looking at resources in general as the prey, and then R and K selected people are both predators fighting over the resources.
Yeah, but we also control the resources, right? So we can control the breeding of the resources. So it's not just happening.
There's competition between predators for the prey, and in essence, you're saying the competition is between the R predators and the K predators, and the prey is the limited resources.
I mean, if you want to call it prey, but it's not really prey. It's resources, because prey sort of implies they're free, but they're not free. They're they're cattle, they're livestock.
What is? I'm saying, okay, like, call it cows. You have the R selected people and the K selected people, and if they're meat eaters, they're both eating the cows. So the cow is the prey, and the R and the K selected people are both predators of the same prey.
Those models won't work because the models are predicated on these things happening under natural circumstances, i.e., a constant breeding rate among both groups, right? They don't take into account the fact
Those
that
are variables you could put into the equation. I'm saying,
but you have
equations
to
are going to be pretty complicated.
all the models, basically. But I can tell you, based on
So you're
logic,
saying that, either you just don't understand what I'm saying.
I do understand. I'm just trying to. I don't know why you don't understand.
You're trying to argue that what I'm talking about cannot be modeled. You're saying
I'm saying it can be modeled.
What I'm
but
talking about cannot be modeled.
You're starting in the wrong place, and I'm trying to tell you why. And you're saying, yeah, but why don't we just do this? I'm saying, no, it's not the right model, Doovid, because it's more complicated than predator prey. It's not even a situation.
My goal is to model this.
Okay, well, look at it as
if you have a better way of modeling it, that's what I want you to do.
It's a situation of two apex predators vying for the same finite set of resources. Finite sets of resources is what K-selected people are evolved to manage. R-selected people are evolved. There's no predator, prey, or anything in this. It's about they're both apex predators. Humans are all apex predators. We killed off all of our competition, right?
No, I'm saying we have a dynamic equilibrium between like humans and cows and humans and chicken.
No,
I mean, chickens and cows are the prey.
We do not have a dynamic equilibrium, Doovid, because the population is exploding because of all the pressure put on people to increase our selectedness of their behavior. This is not
saying there's a dynamic equilibrium between chickens and humans. There's more chickens than humans. Chickens are the predator and humans are the prey, but it doesn't change the fact that there's more chickens than humans. And as the human population increases, the chicken population increases.
Right. So you want to look at the humans and all their livestock as the same predator preying on a finite set of resources on the planet.
Well, I mean, you're talking like a greater like carbon cycle. Like obviously, like carbon, there's a limited amount of carbon or something like that in the organic cycle. So at a certain point, you could only have a maximum amount of carbon, and that gives you a maximum amount of total humans and chickens you could have. But clearly, the humans are the predator, and the chickens and cows and turkeys are the prey.
No, we have assimilated them into they are part of us. As soon as we started practicing keeping livestock, they became part of our biology because we controlled the breeding.
No, I mean, you're saying that's not, there's still the prey.
It's animal husbandry.
We're manipulating the equilibrium. So in nature, there would be a natural, before livestock in agriculture or animal husbandry or however you want to refer to it, there would have been a natural equilibrium that would have prevented population growth based on the number of chicken, the number of buffalo available, but humans have been able to manipulate the equilibrium model through animal husbandry and breeding and various things, but it doesn't change the fact that the chicken is still the predator, the prey, and we're still the predators. Chickens aren't eating humans. Humans are eating chickens.
They can't be modeled that way. I don't know how many times I have to keep saying this. We have to model. If you want to use a predator-prey model, you have to model the livestock as part of us because we
I don't see
control
why
the
you can't
breeding.
model. I'm saying if you just had a
Because
population,
the model won't work. Because
because
those
I
models
give you
presume-
exact numbers. I'm saying I don't have the numbers available, but you could have
Well,
an exact number of
dude,
the amount of humans and the exact
livestock-
number of the amount of chickens and the exact number of the amount of chickens being eaten by humans. And there you got a model. Like if you got numbers and you could put it onto a graph and you have a model.
Yeah, but the model doesn't correspond to reality because, like, the number of
How
chickens,
does that
cows,
not respond to
pigs.
reality? There's the exact number of chickens eaten by
Let me
humans.
finish. The number of chickens, cows, pigs, sheep, all whatever consumed by humans are a function of what is known as animal husbandry, which means that it's a reflection of our ability as apex predators to manage resources. Now, some human beings tend to manage resources in a more R-selected fashion, and some manage to do it in a more K-selected fashion. That depends upon both the genetics and the environment and how those environments feed back into the genetics of people in
It
a
could be
given
like in
R
India
select.
or something like that.
No.
In our selected area like India, through vegetarianism, you could support a larger population. So in a K-selected area, everybody could eat beef and chicken. But if it became R-selected, then there would not be there would be a limit on the cycle that would curb the population that's available to allow humans to eat chicken and beef. So as the human population increases and resources become more limited, the luxury or ability to eat chicken and beef will decrease. So if your territory right now, where you could basically enjoy as much chicken and beef as you want, became overran by our selected people, that would limit your ability to possibly no longer having chicken and beef at your disposal. And this could be exactly
I
modeled.
really think Indians are selected. They're just under pressure from all the looting from the R-selected desert bandit tribe that decided to steal all their stuff
If they're not our selected, how's there so many of them?
because of propaganda and multiculturalism. India is actually the oldest multicultural country out there. So all the
How do
fetching
you get so many of these people if they weren't our
because
selected?
these external factors cause a shift in behavior towards our selection, i.e., Islam. Who is behind Islam again? Oh, right. So, we turning this around anytime soon, or are we just driving towards a fucking cliff until we're all dead and the earth is completely destroyed?
I don't know. I mean, you got to stop the moralizing and just. So either
right.
you're not.
I
Either
have to
you're not
stop moralizing.
interested in
Okay,
trying to create
you
a
guys
model,
stop first
and you
because
say,
I'm
I don't
pretty
want
sure
to have this
moralizing is what
conversation and try to scientifically create it. I want to.
I just find
moralize.
it really funny that you're telling me to stop moralizing. I just find that really funny because I'm just stating facts here. You're the one moralizing. All this stuff is moralizing. Every single one of your LARPs is moralizing. I'm not moralizing. I'm stating facts. I'm saying either we're in charge and we all live, or you're in charge and we're all dead. That's a fact. That's not moralizing. I'm saying, yeah, it's probably better for alive. Maybe you disagree with me. I don't know. That's not moralizing. That's stating facts. You're saying, well, multiculturalism, this, that. That's moralizing.
Yeah, because I'm looking at it
That's moralizing. Islam,
scientifically.
that's
No one's going
moralizing.
to be in charge. You're going to have equilibrium, and it's going to shift between various equilibrium points. There is no such thing as one person being in charge or the other. And it's not like the predators are in charge and the prey are following the orders of the predator. There's just a dynamic model of the interaction between predator and prey, and there's not one in charge of the other. It's not like K people are going to be in charge of our people. They're just different.
Well, right now, the R-selected people are in charge, and for a while before that, when things
no
were
one
good.
saying there's no one.
Yeah, there's in charge
strategies
because you
competing
guys
for
have never been
resources.
in charge, so you don't know how to be in charge. So you're basically doing like a LARP cargo cult to make it look like you have the authority to be in power, right? But yeah, I get it.
These concepts are, I mean,
What-
you're importing moralizing concepts into science. No one's in
I don't
charge. Like,
think so, Doovid.
When R selected people and K selected people live in the same environment, the R selected imports kidnap 5-year-old kids at the Mall of America and throw them off 3-story balconies, and they create a whole mayhem of violence and chaos. None of the K selected people kidnap R selected infants and do anything to them. That's
yeah, I mean,
science.
so
That's what
okay,
happens.
like, yeah, I mean, like, humans eat chickens and chickens don't eat humans.
Yeah, but the chickens, that the chickens are eaten by humans is a function of animal husbandry. And so the analogy doesn't quite hold. I'm just talking about when the R selected predatory subspecies meets the K selected predatory subspecies. The R selected predator takes the kids of the K selected, and the kids of the K selected are going to be smaller in number. So, I mean, every kid lost is a greater loss to the genetic population. They take them and throw them over 3-story balconies. The K selected people hardly ever touch the offspring of the R selected. In fact, they sometimes, out of the goodness of their own hearts, stupidly pay for these R selected people to reproduce.
Yeah, but
So
ironically, I'm the
it's a
one who's
bad
completely
deal.
I'm the one who's completely removing free will from the picture, and you're saying that there is no. They're just saying both sides are going to act in the instinctual way. There is no, like lions or gazelles. There's no free will in the picture. Both act instinctually according to the way that they were created, and there's just dynamic equilibrium between their interactions. And whether it's R and K selected humans, you're saying that you don't need free will.
No free will doesn't mean there's dynamic equilibrium, though. That's not a logical argument.
Yeah, because the dynamic equilibrium is just assuming that there's a natural, or these people act in a certain way. There's nothing that could be done about it, but there's natural equilibrium points that will develop based on the interaction.
Not when the R selected strategy is only to consume everything in sight. There is no dynamic equilibrium that is stable until everybody is dead.
Yes, I mean, that's the current situation.
Dead. So the solution is you keep the R selected people and the K selected people.
You're talking free will. There is no solution. It's saying
There is no. It's not free will.
matter, it doesn't matter if everyone goes extinct or if one side wins or the other. You're saying you for whatever reason you're incapable of being objective about it. You're saying if everyone goes extinct or not doesn't matter. If it's a science to it and we're creating a model, and you're saying I don't want everyone to go to extinct. And it's like I don't care. I'm just trying to create a model whether people go to everyone goes extinct or not.
Well,
and if the model says saying if it comes out everyone's going to go extinct and there's nothing we could do about it, it doesn't matter whether you want it to happen.
There is a solution. K-selected people know how to manage resources. They can build a wall to wall themselves off from our selected people, and then everyone survives.
Well into it. So I'm saying, of course, K-selected people. Yeah, but say you're not being scientific. Of course, obviously, K-selected people are going to struggle to survive and do whatever is in their means to survive. Like that's obvious. So like I don't need you to tell me that K-selected people are going to try to do whatever they can to survive, and you don't need me to tell you that R-selected people are going to do whatever it takes to survive. That's what we're trying to create a model of the scientific. Like okay, duh, we know that R-selected and K-selected people are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
Okay, look. There's two basic.
Like, of course, K-selected people are going to do whatever it takes to survive.
There's only two outcomes. There's only two outcomes. R-selected people continue to dominate and reproduce in K-selected territories, and because of their numbers, they come to rule over the territories and consume everything, including all the K-selected people, and then eventually themselves, and everyone dies. Or K-selected people rule over territories where there's both R-selected and K-selected people. They create boundaries between themselves and R-selected people. R-selected people's nature regulates their populations back to equilibrium with the environment, and K-selected people manage it so that the whole system doesn't collapse and there's more life. Those are only two outcomes of the whole thing. So
No, I mean,
case
you could have
selected people must rule
dynamic
if you want life, and
equilibrium.
R
You're
selected
talking
people rule but there is no dynamic equilibrium because the two strategies are completely opposite. Like one strategy will dominate and subdue the other, and there will be no dynamic equilibrium that can be reached.
Did you study differential equations?
Yeah, but like that they
You
don't.
studied
Like, your
do the
model
predators
doesn't apply here.
so have equilibrium points, and saying once you
There is
find
no
so
equilibrium
equilibrium
point.
point could be extinction of the R people, extinction of the K people, some sort of population balance, and that could either be an equilibrium point of separation of our people living in one area and K in another, or there could be some sort of equilibrium point of R and K people living in the same area.
There must be boundaries between the R and the K, because if they're living in the same area, competing of the same resources, and the R's are in charge, the R's will consume all the Ks.
Now you're moralizing something. That must be obvious.
Not
Obviously, they're not.
moralizing. No, it's not
R&K
moralizing. It's acknowledging what R's will do.
R's-
R's are in charge.
There's no natural
outweigh
boundary.
the
There's no
Ks.
natural boundary between R and K people.
Yeah, sure, there are oceans, mountains, walls. Of course, you can build a wall. You can have an army. I mean, this whole mixing wouldn't even be happening if the army wasn't complicit to the multiculturalism agenda. This is unnatural. This is something that's only happening because people are getting rich off the just moving people around.
You're saying that territorially, all of the people who live in one territory were either one way or the other. There was never that, like historically,
Never.
there haven't always been R
Never.
and K people. In all
Multiculturalism has never been a thing. It's always been isolated groups.
I mean, multiculturalism, we're talking about even within culture. You say, okay, so you're saying ethnically, one ethnic group has always either been R or K. So you say, okay, you just said the Indian people are not R selected people.
They're the most K-selected people out there, in theory.
So then how do they have such a large population?
Because, as I said, they've been getting pillaged for 1,400 plus years, and they've had
Does that
changes.
decrease their population? How does getting pillaged increase your population?
Because then they get converted to a foreign religion that compels them to shit out infinity kids to be Gollum.
So that means there are selected.
No, it means that they have been mind controlled into behaving in a way which is more R selected. And that's what I said is this propaganda / government causes a shift in behavior towards R selection because it's not a static thing. You can easily cause K selected people to shift towards R selected behavior through propaganda because R selected behavior is more hedonistic. So it's like a short termism, right? R selection is all about short termism. So yeah, sure, it feels great to do drugs and have sex with a bunch of random people, maybe, but in the long term, it's bad for you, right? So it's easy to get a shift towards R selection, but it's not easy to get a shift towards a K selection because the only thing that gives a shift towards K selection is the natural environment. And that takes a significantly longer timeline than it does to institute some propaganda that tells people to shit out infinity kids because reasons.
Yeah, I'm not. I mean, you both seem to have an agenda too much to to be useful and
There's no
create
agenda.
model.
I mean, yeah, I have biases because I'm honest about them, but you just look at the
So much so that
behaviors.
you're not going to be capable of creating a model.
I can create a model. I'm pretty sure I just did tell you what the event inevitability would be, and you're saying, well, you're moralizing. I'm saying, no, this is just like literally just science. Like our selected predators will lead to a collapse in the biome, which is why they are like selected against by the mere virtue of the planet being a finite surface. If the Earth was infinite, then the K-selected strategy would work. I mean, the R-selected strategy, sorry. If the Earth was infinite, then it would be fine. R-selects believe in their subconscious that there's an infinity of resources.
I think work is subjective, so to say, like, that you are applying a value on.
When I say work, I mean not set up a series of situations that will eventually lead to everyone being dead.
Okay, but you're adding a value judgment that doesn't
Yes, I'm saying
necessarily.
it's good to be alive. That's my value.
Yeah, so that probably is something that a value judgment that should not be included in the model. Predator-prey model doesn't need a value judgment of whether being alive or not is good or bad.
I don't think I actually made that value judgment, but I think you'd be hard pressed to find someone who disagreed with that position.
Yeah,
Being alive.
nature, science.
So science says it's good to be dead?
Science said that's not a subject of science, whether it's good or not to be
I
dead
don't
or
think
alive.
I said anything about good or bad. I said factually, either the K selects are the ones controlling things and we all survive, or the R selects are the ones controlling things and we all die. That's not a moral judgment. That's a fact. That's a statement of fact.
You're saying you have nature, instinctual nature. Organisms act according to their instinctual nature, regardless of the outcome. They're adding a free will type element that, like, okay, if it's going to lead to extinction, that the organism could come up with some sort of free will to change its course of action in order to avoid this negative outcome of extinction. But like biologically, that's probably not how things work. There's instinctual action, and whether or not that leads to extinction or not cannot has no bearing, because instinct is instinct. There is no free will. And if instinct leads to extinction, that's so be it.
Yeah, so be it. We're not making moral judgments. Oh, well, at least I'm not. I'm just stating facts.
Yeah, so that's why I wanted to stop you and say, you say there's an instinct to survive. However, there's not a free will to change your survival instincts in order to prevent extinction. So like, just like the Asian carp, you can't tell the Asian carp that, like, look, if you eat up all the plankton, it's not going to be good even for you. You got to slow down your reproduction so you don't all die. The Asian carp don't have that sort of free will control to look out for their own best interest and not keep on reproducing and eating up all the plankton. Like no, they're going to keep on eating up all the plankton, and even if it means that they go extinct.
I get that. Just why
But yet by humans, you think like, no, there's some sort of like a supernatural free will thing where we could, break our instinct and therefore collectively get together and say, let's not go extinct.
Are the Jews, or are they not trying to get Europeans to change their survival strategy and their beliefs and everything about them?
I don't think they're trying to do that. I'm saying that
and what was Christianity and what was Islam and what was liberalism?
People are just using
communism. And what were all those things if not an attempt to change the behaviors and essential nature of Indo-Aryans? But you're saying we can't do that back to you now? It doesn't make any sense.
There's no attempt to change other people, because that's impossible. People don't change. People are just
why was Christianity invented if not to change Europeans? For the benefit of Jews. What was the point of that?
But I mean, there was no point in saying that. Was just the natural outcome of interaction and intergroup competition. You say, okay, it doesn't matter to Jews whether Europeans go extinct or Indians go extinct if there is no more Europeans anymore. Using that's just a natural outcome of group competition. You're saying, and I'm saying the opposite. You're saying, no, if it's zero sum, you're saying, no, like, Europeans are going to be European. They're not going to change. Like, any attempt of the Jews to change the character of the European will fail. No, however, a predator-prey type model might be zero sum, and one group might go extinct and the other might survive, or both groups might go extinct, or both groups might survive. And
it has succeeded to some extent. Look at how different Europeans are because of Christianity. So Bookin has asked...
No, you're saying the essential character of Europeans is the same.
No, not really. Bokin 7 is asking who aborted more babies, K-selected or R-selected. That's going to be R-selected because they have a higher fecundity. Right? People who get pregnant more often are going to have more abortions, just statistically speaking. And R-selecteds... their strategy is just to have as many kids as possible because that's how.
If you want, like in the Talmud, they say like a havamina. Like, you might have thought that K-select people, only have 2 kids each because they aborted 10, And so K-selected people have more abortions than R-selected people, and that's why they have so few kids. But like, no, the reality is the one with 10 kids, might have aborted 10 others, and that's only has 10 kids. Is where the K-selected person that only has 1 or 2 kids maybe aborted 1 or 2. But it's saying, okay, you might have thought that the K-selected person that only has 2 kids only has 2 kids because they on average have 5 abortions each.
Yeah,
And
that's
saying,
not
no,
why.
it's actually the person that has 10 kids that's more likely to have had 5 abortions.
Yeah, exactly. It's because the K-selected people spend more time raising their kids and put more attention into them, so they don't have as many of them. It's basically that. It's a higher intelligence thing.
Now, you
Higher.
get free will into the equation and saying, like, yes, it's possible that the interaction between Jews and Europeans has caused the selection strategy of Europeans to be adapted, just like multiculturalism. But that's not necessarily the case. You're saying it could be that the strategy is basically a permanent thing that never changes, and it's just a question of zero sum. One group's going to go extinct, and then the other group is going to dominate, and it's just a question of which group's going to go extinct.
I don't see it as a. Well, I mean, yeah, I do think if the R selects are in charge, yeah, there will be extinction. But the K selects, I don't see that leading to any extinction. Just more of a segregation type of thing. We don't have the same urge of bloodlust as the R selects. We prefer peace and order. We're not looking to drown our society in rivers of blood. That's not part of our desires.
And I hate the people on our side, like the Siege Bus Wignat types that, joke about that shit. They make us all look bad. Like the best of our people want minimal bloodshed, minimal chaos, minimal disorder, because we like peace and tranquility. I crave it. That's what I crave, peace and tranquility. And anything which adds to peace and tranquility, I'm for. Anything which adds to chaos and violence, I'm against. So having people, Mogadishu light bulbs, living with, Swedes and Nords in Minnesota who are simple farming folk, and they bring in like radical ideologies and our selected behavior, that adds to chaos. And I don't want that. And
we're saying that a strategy
that
is that a non-adaptable strategy, or saying, okay, there's other people that are completely fine and comfortable with violence, and then there's people who are against violence, or is that an adaptable strategy?
I don't want to adapt to people that bring violence and chaos, who are totally foreign.
I don't mean adapt to it, but saying if it meant, presumably if there was a zero-sum battle between people who are pro-violence and anti-violence, the pro-violence people are going to win.
No, the anti-violence people are going to win because we're going to get 30s and say, the violent people, here, get on the plane, we're shipping you out.
The anti-violent people are better at violence. It's the same reason I am so good at BTFOing idiots. Because
then it's an adaptable strategy that the anti-violence people are capable of using the strategy of violence. So you're saying it's not like
we're all violent because we're all predators. We all have the capacity for violence. You can't just say, oh, well, these people are violent, these people are non-violent. No, we all have the capacity for violence. It just manifests differently.
So we're all predators.
Violence. We don't relish violence, okay? We want to get it over with as quickly as possible and have as little of it as possible. That's just our way. Now, for the R-selected people, they're basically used to being in a situation of constant threats of violence because of how scarce the resources are. So they kind of are more comfortable in a situation of basically impending violence.
So this is interesting. I mean, maybe it's not really, unless someone else is going to come and add. I don't know if this is such like a week in review. This is like a area of more streams.
I thought it was an interesting conversation.
It's not really week in review. I'm saying like this is a whole area of research that needs more research, and saying we're not really reviewing our research. We're more like talking off the whim of just the things we haven't researched yet. So I don't know if this is really a good discussion for week in review. Well, it is an interesting discussion.
It is interesting stuff.
But we're not really reviewing anything.
Well, I don't know. I enjoy knockdown, drag out debates. Like I love for this fucking shit. Like
you have to. you have to have like done the work before the debate. You know, saying like, so now we're just, you know, like whimming ideas without having done prior research.
I've researched this stuff. I don't know what's unclear about what I've said. I think my position is pretty unbeatable. It's just not something that gets researched. I wonder why. Just
Yeah,
kidding.
there's not as much data on this as there should be, because whatever the little research that's been done on this tends to show that, you know, multiculturalism leads to chaos and violence, because different groups of people manage resources completely differently. And if it becomes a numbers game, R selected people dominate K selected people, and civilizations collapse when that happens. So, like, to avoid collapse and violence and chaos, K selected people need to rule over civilization, and R selected people either need to be subordinate or excluded.
Yeah, I think, but I mean that's like a moralization, it's not a science, because you're saying
No,
like,
it's
you're
not a
saying like
moralization.
yes,
It's
it
a
is, because when you use the word
chaos.
need to, you're saying okay, you have a natural survival instinct that you're going to do what you need to do automatically. You know, it's not like, oh, you need to do something. That's a moralization, because from the scientific point of view, you know, the predator is going to predator and the prey is going to prey. It's not like, oh, like the prey needs to do this,
Predator-prey model.
the predator needs to do that. You're saying
We're
it's just a
all
natural
predators.
inclination.
We're all predators. It's not an accurate
Yeah,
model.
and so the R and the K, it's not like, oh, the K need to do this, or the R, like obviously both sides are going to do what they need to do. So that's a moralization.
No, it's just what R selected people dominate, chaos and violence dominates. K selected people dominate, civilization and order dominates. That's not a moral statement. That's just a factual statement.
Maybe you're talking, okay, protection, like you know, like the basic human necessities that include protection. So like obviously the nature of the human predator is to protect, and that includes R and K people. So like obviously the K people are going to try to protect, because that's the natural instinct of humans to protect. So you're saying, okay, K people need to protect. You're saying like, well, I don't need you to tell me that, because like that's the natural instinct. Of course they're going to do that.
Yeah, that becomes a lot harder when the system is rigged against K selected people, and K selected people have mind viruses in their head where they're not behaving as they should.
So I mean, rigged rigged because of a conspiracy, or rigged because of a scientific
Well, social engineering inside
dynamic
scientific
equilibrium. You're saying social engineering implies
selected
that
Europeans have been molded for
you're
2,000
free will. I mean, it was a moralization because we're implying free will.
Moralization. You're reading free will into this.
Social engineering implies intent,
yes, of course.
as opposed to the natural instinct to protect and survive. Engineering implies intent, which implies free will.
Let me finish. K-selected Europeans have had 2,000 years of a foreign religion dominating them that has turned their idealism against them, such that they haven't been able to realize their K-selected people, so that the church and every ideology which has followed in its wake has been allowed to propagate itself using the K-selected Europeans against their own better instincts, so that we haven't been able to really realize the full potential we have, because we haven't had our own organic religion, and our own organic religion, which is essentially scientific and natural, law-based, in at least 2,000, if not 5,000 years. And this is the effects of this 2,000 years later, after Christianity, is the Lutheran Church opens up the door to every refugee that comes from Mogadishu, and now Minnesota is becoming consumed to death.
Yes, I mean, if Kevin McDonald, you know, put it, okay, the struggle for resources between Europeans and Jews was won by the Jews.
Because they controlled.
Because doesn't matter.
Cause does matter. The Jews would not have beaten the Europeans if the Jews didn't know how to hack the mental survival strategy of Europeans, starting with Christianity and then continuing on with liberalism and the Enlightenment.
Yeah, but the Jews just acted according to
you guys won.
And the Europeans just acted according to their natural inclination.
You guys won. You're in charge. So everything that's happening now, all the problems in the world, that's you guys in charge. Okay? You guys won.
Now we control the resources
Congratulations.
in your native territories.
Yep, you control everything. Nice job. Congratulations. So everything going on right now, that's you guys. That's the kind of that's the way you guys do to civilization. Everything going on right now. How are things going right now?
And saying that historical, you could take those numbers and plug them into a computer and put it into a predator prey model.
No, you can't, because we're both predators. Predator prey model only work if it's unilateral predation, which it's not. I mean, it is right now, but it could switch directions, right? So it's more complex than just a predator prey model. Because the predator prey models that exist right now, there's no mechanism to switch the roles, right? Like whenever there's conflict, it's essentially a situation of the roles switching, right? It's like what happened in the Crusades. The Europeans were getting preyed on, and then they decided to become the predators, right? That you can model that note for sure, but I mean, you can't use a standard predator prey model because it doesn't allow for the roles to switch like that.
Yeah, I don't see where Jen is wrong there. Like, that's just how nature works.
I'm gonna have to call it a night. So I mean, if you guys want to carry on, you can, but unless you had something else you want, if you want to do like last words or
Sure,
there's some other topic you wanted to cover.
Yeah, I had an awesome time. Thanks for giving us a chance to talk about this stuff. I really enjoyed talking about Israel with you. So thanks for telling us. So, do you want to have your last words, and maybe Gandalf and I will just chat for a bit? I don't know how Gandalf is doing, so we can just.
I just want to say thanks, Doovid. I enjoy knockdown, drag out debates. This is fun. Like, I just have fun.
I didn't even want to debate. Like I was trying to just talk about ideas. We were saying the nature, of competition. We're saying, okay, it's a competitive model and it needs to be a debate. And that what I went back earlier to like the zero sum model or people needing to enter statecraft due to the necessity of the situation and inability to just continue our research and talk about ideas.
Well, I mean, I got a little emotional about a few things. I have very strong views on a few certain issues, but look, I always learn and I enjoy conversation, and I even enjoy knockdown, drag out debates. I just like getting into ideas myself. I enjoy long discussions about ideas. I live for this shit. And to be honest, I like people that I can disagree with and that look at things differently, and we learn from the different points of view. And frankly, that's what good intellectual life is about. We need a hell of a lot more of that. That's all I want to say. So I'm grateful for that.
Do you have any last words there, Doovid?
Yeah, I mean, maybe just a general advice to people who's saying to try to there's difference between debate and your research or intellectualism and objectivity. It requires you're trying to recognize the bias and remove person's desire for one side of the debate to win or not, and just to best of ability objectively analyze ideas.
Cool. There was just one quick question for you in the chat. It was from Urban Movers. If you would vote for Netanyahu.
I don't vote. Like I don't support the system of vote. It's like I think that's like it's like the democracy trap. So I just always avoid the democracy trap. I would never vote for. I don't want to fall into the trap of being choosing between bad choices.
Awesome. Thanks. Well, thanks so much for joining, and we'll look forward to the next time we talk. Thank you for everything you contributed. I had a great time this week. Sorry, it got a bit off track there, but I really love getting a chance to pick your brain, Doovid.
Well, I enjoyed the one thing I'll say. My last thing is like, you took the Jim Jones thing or the Jonestown thing into a really fascinating direction. So I appreciate thinking about that. Like, well, we might disagree on a lot, but whatever you do, you always challenge my thinking, and hopefully I challenge yours, because that's the point of streams and discussion, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, I think it comes to like for debate. A lot of times you want to decipher motive and intent, in order to say, okay, well, you think this because of your motive and intent. But for research and forwarding ideas, motive and intent are at most biases that should become recognized. They're saying, okay, I don't care what your motive is, or intent is, besides for maybe recognizing a bias that's preventing the truth from being discovered, as opposed to like where you have a debate, then trying to pin a person's motive or intent becomes quite important. So it makes for like shifting the goal of conversation. So like if you're in science class and you're doing research and the person tried to like, oh, you think like this because this is your motive and this is your intent, and you're like, I'm just trying to do my research on the predator prey model. Like, why the hell do you keep on trying to figure out what my motive and intent is? I'm just trying to figure out the truth, as opposed to you're trying to like in a zero-sum battle for statecraft and saying which solution should be implemented, and then it becomes more important. It's like you choose that this solution should be implemented over the other because of your motive and intent. So you want to have a conversation where motive and intent matter, and I want to have a more theoretical conversation where motive and intent doesn't matter. If that makes sense when I'm telling you. So
I think it's just projection, right? You're saying we're moralizing. You're the one who's moralizing. You're saying we need to remove our bias. You're the one who has a bias, right? So it's like
everyone has bias. I'm not saying. I'm saying you have to have a purpose to a conversation. I was trying to have a type conversation that was theoretical, where I'm not using words like should or good or bad. I'm just talking theory. And so when you can have different conversations where words like should and good and bad are relevant, but for a theoretical conversation, you're saying, I don't care about should in good and bad. And so it becomes an unproductive conversation where you have to kind of set like what's the goal of the conversation, and can we have a conversation that doesn't include good and bad and should. And so I was trying to have a conversation that did include good and bad and should, and you were trying to have a conversation that did include good and bad and should.
Well, I think one reason we might have misspoke is like when I say should, and I think because you projected that.
That's why I keep on it. Like every time you say should,
let me finish here. Let me finish. I thought you were projecting moralism onto me, so I projected a moralism back. But I think my original intention, because I'm just going back to this conversation in my head, and I'll have to re-listen to these streams or whatever here, is when I mean should not in a normative sense, but in a predictive sense. Like what should happen given what is most likely to happen, given all the constellation of facts that we know about a given situation. So I mean should, I mean it in a predictive sense, not in a normative sense. Like I use should in both senses, but primarily in the context of these discussions in a predictive sense.
Well, okay, so maybe the conversation will be
and so that might have been my fault
future.
That it'd be interesting to review it, because like I think maybe I talked past you and we misunderstood each other on a certain point, so I got emotional about like sticking to a certain point because I'm a very stubborn person, but that's okay. It's important that getting words down and being very specific in their usage can often be quite difficult, particularly when a word like should does have like a normative and a predictive sense.
Yes, that's why going back early, we're arguing like great minds don't really belong in statecraft. You say, okay, created by geniuses to be ran by idiots or just above average intelligence people or whatever. But great minds want to use their minds in the realm of ideas, as where lesser minds you want to are more meant for management or statecraft or ideas or proclaiming, and that's why I don't know, like a segregation or separation of the minds who just are pushing forward ideas versus the minds who are trying to govern, and it's not. They're different conversations. They're different communication. They're different styles, the people who push forward ideas, and the people who are trying to govern.
I
And
think
so when you mix the two in conversation, like I'm trying to have a theoretical topic about an idea, and you're trying to have a conversation about how we should govern.
Well, I suppose I think because I'm watching society crumble, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking about, well, how does that idea apply so that we govern a society so we have the maximum amount of peace, order, and prosperity, and the lowest amount of, crime, chaos, violence, poverty, insanity, and all this other stuff that we have now. Like I'm always thinking in terms of how do we get more peace, order, and prosperity, and less chaos and less violence. Like my mind is always tuned toward how do we get that to work. And so like I'm always evaluating situations on those bases. And I mean this is why like the Nazi LARPing siege posting people hate me, because I'm like, you people think you're just going to start and burn all this stuff down and think that's going to make it better? Are you kidding? There's a lot of opportunities to add more peace, order, and prosperity, and you're not even fucking putting your mind to it when I can give you 3 ideas here and these people respond, that's gay, that's retarded, you're cucking to the blacks. I mean, I've heard all those things all the time. And I said, why? Because I'll talk to people of other tribes and show them respect, even if we disagree. That makes me a cuck. Well, you just want to like
But
cause
that
more
makes you prescriptive. I'm more analytical and you're more prescriptive. And it's like, I don't want to be prescribed. I just want to analyze. And you're saying you're not interested in analysis. You're interested in prescriptions.
I'm interested in both because I want correct analysis to lead to proper prescriptions that help as many people as possible. First of my tribe, but also people of other tribes too, if possible.
Yeah, I'm not even my analysis isn't even for the goal of prescription. Like I don't need a goal of prescription to find analysis useful. Is where you might you're saying like analysis is only for the goal of coming to a prescription.
Not only, but I'm aiming in that direction because I just don't see that many people capable of, running society in a sane enough way to keep it from collapsing right now. So like some people have to step into the breach, get people, shake them out of their stupor, get them to see that, okay, there are some smart people out here that are really concerned. I mean, you probably didn't hear the stream I did right before Week in Review where we spent I mostly was talking to the chat because I was having a little trouble with OBS, but we're doing a lot of stuff about the science of agriculture and figuring out, how to redo land use patterns in agriculture so that, we don't ruin the water and the soil in the next 15, 20 years, because we could potentially lose it all if we continue the same kind of agricultural and agronomic practices that we have now. We have to change these things, and we need enlightened people to be in charge of it so that we change these things for the benefit of the greatest number of people.
Okay, Tom Steyer.
Tom Steyer. Yeah, Tom Steyer. Well, I don't know.
You know who you're voting for.
I know you said you wanted to go, Doovid, so I don't want to keep you on if you want to head off.
See you later. Have nice dreams, blessings, and be well. And always enjoy seeing you on Sunday night.
Take care. It was a great show. Bye. Yeah. So Gandalf Vance wants to come on. I mean,
no. Well, I mean, I'll say this. I got a message that people on Friday want to clarify that we didn't dox and don't endorse the attempted doxing of Gandalf. But I don't know if I really want to talk to John Vance. I just don't know. I've done it. I did it earlier today for a brief time on Daniels. I mean, does anyone else really want to come on? Because
I haven't seen anyone in the chat say that they want to come on other than Vance. I know Claire wants to come on, but
that's not going to work. Because we'll get more naked pictures of people in bathrooms. Does Donald Robertson want to come on? Like I talked with him for a while on Daniel's streams. I think he's from the South or Texas, and he was very polite, very nice guy. Yeah, he's like me. He was liberal at one point, kind of got red pilled in the last few years as the media sort of started to behave in an insane sense. I don't know. You should ask him. I kind of like him.
I don't know, his whole thing about global warming, that was pretty ridiculous.
Well, I got him to be a little more agnostic on it.
I mean, anyone pushing global warming, pretty much put you in the shill category or idiot category, because it's obviously a bullshit thing. I mean, obviously there's pollution problems, but global warming, I mean, those models can easily be proven to be complete bullshit and just a trick to get more Gibbs out of the K-selected people through guilt mining.
Yeah, and it's basically about taxing white working and middle class people to death for
It's not
some
just white people, and the
threat.
reality is that Europeans aren't even all that productive, frankly. They just have higher value currency, right? So
That's a way of looking at it too. I mean, yeah, I mean, there is a financial side of it.
So yeah, in a way, like we're kind of the Shabbos Goyim who get the biggest table scraps in the Commonwealth. So to say that we're the most productive is kind of fallacious. Like, it doesn't really work like that. Yeah, Europeans could be better. They could be more case selected, but right now they're in pretty bad shape and pretty are selected with their beliefs and behavior. So it's not like that.
I mean, there's no way that you take the current demographic of European Americans in the United States, and if you put them in a wartime situation, that they could produce the amount and quality of material that they produced to win World War II against Germany and Japan. We couldn't repeat that feat now of social order. We're just too damaged and weak, too enervated, too diffident, too distracted, and too degraded from just the dark eroticization and drugging of our culture.
We need to heal first and foremost. And that's why a lot of these, civilizational LARPs like reclaiming Constantinople, etc., are a bit far-fetched, and not to mention kind of go against the history of Europeans, right? Because Europeans didn't really start being conquistadors until they were run by Jews. So arguably, they're not really colonialists in that sense. Like, they're not. It's not their survival strategy to like keep on expanding forever, take over the world type thing.
Yeah, and that's particularly true of the further north you go among Europeans, and the more inland you go. So the further north and further inland you go, the less of that there is. And yeah, at this point, we're a pretty damaged people. We're 9% of the world's population, like 2.5% of the world's population are European females of breeding capacity. So, like, our demographics are terrible. This is why the people that promote violence are, they threaten that very, very small population with potential extermination. If we fire the first shot and, the control system still can turn people against the people that fired the first shot, such that it could get everybody else to eliminate all of us, we're gone. Like, people don't really consider the stakes. That's why people that are rash, that are impulsive, that think siege posting and Fed posting is fun, i.e., Kurt Poolittle, let's blow up a power station and we'll automatically win control of the system mentality, are dangerous, and that kind of talk must be suppressed.
Yeah, our selected people thrive in chaos, right? So obviously they're going to push those types of agendas, right? So
yeah, that's why Kurt Poolittle is very dangerous.
I wonder if Claire or Kurt is more dangerous. Probably Claire, because their ideology appears to evoke more fanaticism amongst people. I don't know how many really fanatical followers Kurt has. I mean, Claire doesn't have any followers, but Islam, does have some followers. I wish I could just put the link in the chat, but the R selected people have made that impossible because they have no impulse control. And they will just come in and wreck the show. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It just, I mean, I'm an introvert. I like to keep to myself. I mean, I had to interrupt Friday and Saturday because people want to see you on the weekends, and I stream like every weekend on Friday or Saturday. And I'd stream rather than go out to see family or friends. So but I basically like chill stuff with people. You
yeah.
know, and,
Yeah,
and I want a very placid life.
We might as well wrap it up soon. Claire and John are begging for the link, but frankly, I'm disgusted that John said he wanted to call the cops on me because he didn't like that I BDFO'd him so bad in a debate and then reported my video and then lied about it and then said that me claiming he reported my video is something he could go to the cops for. So go fuck yourself, John Vance. Go fuck yourself, Claire Caw. We're not going to have you on. Yeah, John, you're saying I'm lying, but I don't fucking believe you, piece of shit.
It'll just be too much drama because at least with
How many lies has Vance told about me, right? I mean, the man can't stop slandering me every fucking time. Nothing he's ever said about me is true, right? Yeah, exactly. Like he's calling me a shameless cunt in the chat right now. It's just like you're a savage, Vance. You're a disgusting person. Like people like you in charge would lead to the world looking like a desert shithole. No one trusts you, John Vance. You're a failure. All you would have had to do is just shut your goddamn pie hole and stop talking above your post, but you can't do that because you know you're fucking worthless scum. And so you need a system, an R selected system that allows worthless scum to rise to the top because only the K selected system is meritocratic. You're allergic to the true meritocracy because you know you'd be at the bottom of it. The bottom. Yeah, sure. Here's a lie. You called me a whore. Prove it. Huh? You got any proof there? Yeah, Vance, I'm telling you right now. You called me a whore. Let's see the proof. Because
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure there's no such proof. I mean,
I'm pretty sure Jen isn't going out to the
here's
club
another
or
lie.
riding the cock carousel.
He said I got fired from my RCMP job.
That's a
That's a
fault.
lie.
That's false.
I was the world leader. I had people calling me every day asking for help with their own work, right? I was the world leader in voice ID, right? So to say that you never lied about me is just ridiculous, you know? And like, just watch your fucking mouth because what you're saying is definitely, I haven't said anything that could be considered slander against you, Vance, but you've definitely said stuff about me that could affect my reputation. And so is Claire. So be careful because there's a fuck ton more people, smart people, who are pro me than who are pro you. So you're not going to be coming on, fuck bag. You can sit in the fucking cuck shed for all time. You're lucky I don't ban you off the chat altogether, and I may do it if you don't stop running your fucking mouth about me. So plebs, shut your fucking hole. Stop making your streams just about trashing me because you have no ideas, and actually maybe do something for once that isn't a complete waste of time. So yeah, that's my final words. Any final words for you, Kendall?
I would say that if there's one person who wants to come on who's in chat, I'd ask Donald Robertson. If he doesn't want to come on in like 1 minute, I say we shut it down for the night. Because I've been at this 6 hours, and I did 2 hours of streams before that, and it's like when you stream for like 5 o'clock to 2 a.m., I'm kind of tired from talking for 9 hours with only eating a little spaghetti and pasta in the meantime as a break.
Yeah, John Vance, I've streamed with you before, and I believe the last time I was at a stream with you, I got very annoyed that you had so little self-control due to being a degenerate piece of trash and an alcoholic, that I had to actually leave the stream because you were unable to not talk over me. So think about that. Well, that's assuming you can think, which I think we both know that you can't, which is why you form the opinions that you do. So yeah.
Well, Don Robertson says he's too tired to come on, but he's a pretty polite guy. I mean, I think he's pretty reasonable. I mean, he's still learning, and he's curious. He was very polite to me. I'd like to give him a chance for sure.
Yeah, Vance is saying it's because we can't address his arguments. We should just start calling him Claire because he sounds just like her. You haven't made any arguments, Vance, right? You wrote a thing in the chat before that didn't even make sense. So everything is just you trying to rationalize post hoc your boneheaded, shit munching, dipshit, mind fucked ideas because you're essentially a bottom feeding piece of trash, which is why you were being Claire Caw.
Claire says the world's greatest debater and her sidekick, as if, of course, because you give me orders all the time, right? And yeah, I just am your bitch or sexually fetishize you. I mean, that's obviously what's going on in the mind here of
or
Claire.
it's projection, because
Yeah, could be projection, of course. But the world's greatest debater and her sidekick is not able to deal with a degenerate piece of trash and alcoholic. It's not that we're not able to; it's that we don't want to because it's a waste of time.
yeah, it makes us look bad because we've already heard Vance out. He didn't make any arguments. I think that's pretty clear. So we would actually look foolish to think things would change. That's why you're not getting an audience with me anymore either, Claire. Your abuse, your lies, your slander, defamation of me and my associates, and an attempt to pull yourself up, which obviously is never going to work because you're bottom feeder. Your little LARP of having a martyr complex is also not going to work because if anyone's going to milk that cow, it's going to be me, and I'm sure as hell not going to do it. So, yeah, John would just destroy the stream like he's destroyed every other stream he's ever come on. People can watch the streams where John's come on and drunk, borderline crying. Doovid had to put him in his place several times. So,
John Vance, why don't you own up to the lies you've told about me taking down your streams? Well, like it's not worth trying to parse whether what you're saying about us lying is a lie because you've lied too many times yourself.
yeah, Vance, you have no credibility. Why don't you send me a screenshot of all the videos you've reported, your report history, make it a validated screenshot, and if you haven't reported the video, I'll retract the statement. But it's got to be on all your accounts. And even that, I'm not even sure I would buy because maybe you could just get someone else to report it. But the fact is, there was nothing on that stream. There's nothing on that video that was in any way bad. You just were sad because your own words make you sound like a complete fucking idiot that you are, and you didn't like it. So that's how it goes. Right. I have evidence, though. The video got taken down 20 minutes after it went up, and then you later said, well, I was at work when that video got put up, but how do you know, John, when it went up if you were at work, right? So you're obviously the one lying, right? So it looks like Meme Look wants to have an after party, so if you like streams filled with dysfunctional, borderline retarded people, check it out. And you can have some fun shitting all over noble people that are the only ones who will be capable of creating a situation where not everyone is dead and the earth isn't a burning trash fire. So have fun with that. You've already pretty much conceded defeat if you are in any way opposed to us because we're the only ones who can actually get the job done. So have fun with that and enjoy being failures and knowing that we know that you're failures and knowing that we could just push even further and make you look even worse than we already have. And the reason we don't is out of benevolence, but you're drying up the well of our goodwill real quick.
Basically we're like hoisting the bucket down to the bottom, and that well, like we're scraping the well at the bottom and we're barely being able to fill one more bucket. You know that, right? Like the empathy's almost gone. I don't really feel empathy. I mean, only like non-Europeans I feel empathy for are like those with whom I am colleagues with on some level, like we're working on common projects and we're advancing each other in a certain way. And like a few personal friends I've had since long before I've been red pilled. Outside of that, and even for like other Europeans who are dipshits, like my empathy is pretty much done. Like I'm at the point now where I just like, some people that I hadn't gotten along with earlier, like Mr. Jones. I don't think I think he used to attack me in some other streams, but he actually, where I found out he's actually a little bit of he came from like a farming family, not a farmer himself, but he collects like lots of scientific stuff on agriculture, and he has some interesting critiques of the food system, and he's trying to get me resources for that. And it's like, okay, I can develop empathy for people that, are providing me tit for tat cooperation like that, because I want to learn from more people. There's always more I need to learn. I certainly, don't think that I'm some infallible pope or something like that. That's just not how smart people operate.
Yeah, it's awesome. I mean, people like Gandalf are very rare, so I don't know why people can't be happier about it. Like, why do you have to always just criticize everything? Because that's a Jewish thing, right? That's critical theory. So if you're going to be like that, just convert to Judaism, right? I mean, you'll get more stuff out of it. Just don't be sitting on the fence, just go the whole hog. That's what I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Well, and I have nuanced views of lots of issues. Like I have nuanced views of individuals within other tribes, for instance. You know what I mean? So it's not like, I sit here, even though I'm defending Europeans, I'm automatically against, say, every single Somali or something. Like people have these, if you actually talk to me, uh, I get to know people from all over the place because I'm just an intensely curious person by nature, and I look at things pretty rationally. And of course, I'm for my self-interest. I mean, Insane Hermit is normally really chill in the chat, but Gilbert Salgado was just flooding him with all this SJW stuff, even because he was talking about the differences of tribes, he was calling him a bigot and hateful. And Insane Hermit was quite angry in the chat, and he never gets angry in the chat.
Well, like Doooovid said, there is a breaking point, right?
Yeah, Insane Hermit's a chill Aussie, but he just looks at data and that doesn't make hateful. Yeah, and what I always find curious about the SJWs is because Asians have higher IQs than whites, who have higher IQs than Africans. They think that acknowledging that means that you think one group is superior to the other. I don't look at groups that way at all, even though I know all that data. So calling me like a supremacist because I talk about that data is false. Because from the point of view of nature doesn't care who's superior and or who thinks who's superior or inferior. Nature cares about who dominates their habitats and reproduces themselves. That's all that matters.
He says you're right. I just want to read a quote from my Twitter feed it was reshared by someone that was originally from someone called Wendell Schwab. And this is the quote: Nazis are people. Nazis are human beings. They were young once. They have parents. Many are parents or will be. They have dreams, feelings. They have human bodies. They sleep, they get sick, and they age. And they still deserve to be shot. That's very fucking important. Right. So just thought I'd leave
Well,
on that note.
according to a lot of SJWs, a Nazi is a white person who doesn't hate himself and won't repeat communist talking points.
Well, if everyone's a Nazi, then no one's a Nazi, right?
It kind of is that way. I mean, although Talarp is an actual Nazi for a German political party from a Fordist industrial democratic age that no longer exists, is really fucking dumb.
We just have to show them a better way. I'm sure it just takes a bit of time. You can see everyone's repeating my talking points now and, doing the theocratic LARP and everything. So they will come around. I think the whole herding cats thing is only at the beginning because they're just not used to it. But I think they will get used to it over time. It'll be much smoother. So it's maybe in a way it's better that it's tough at the beginning and then smoother at the end rather than the reverse.
Gilbert Salgado, Gandalf isn't a Nazi, but he's Nazi friendly. God damn it. Do you even fucking listen to the streams where all the people are actual Nazis?
I'm not going to tolerate that disgusting defamation on my channel. So clean up your act, Gilbert. Get a clue here. You're here on this stream watching this stuff. We're reasonable people. Get it together, okay?
Yeah. How many times? I am gonna light into this a little bit because I'm sick of fucking insults being used in exchange for arguments. I've talked all the time that Hitler is such a fuck up that it got 40 to 50% of German women raped, and 4 to 5 million German diasporic people genocided in the 5 or 6 years after World War II, and they're never memorialized at all. Okay. So Hitler's histrionic gambling and dumb shit-like behavior cost the lives of millions of my countrymen. So yeah, I'm not friendly to Nazis because no way had I been in Hitler's shoes would I have fucking made anywhere near any of the fucking decisions he made. Just fucking sick of being slandered by being Nazi friendly. Jesus Christ. I'm not gonna fucking tolerate being labeled that way. because you'll get me angrier than any Nazi could ever be dreamed of being, because I do not get defamed.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is, like, we shouldn't be identifying by any label that was invented by people that hate us. Pagan, Nazi, like all these labels, all they do is diminish your self-esteem. You got to go with your own identity. You can't enemy. You can't let your enemies define you. And this is why I consider Claire an enemy, because she's trying to tell my people who they are. That's an enemy action, not a friend.
Yeah, I really resent people pushing religions or legal systems, as Claire says, that are inspired by religions from a people that are totally foreign, not my own, from a different century in a different situation than our people are now. The only laws I want developed for our people are developed by our people, for the benefit of our people.
Yeah,
like,
FUBU. Respect.
Yeah. This is why Gilbert and his lecturing us on white supremacy. I don't take any more lectures on that bullshit. I've never advocated white supremacy. I fucking hate Richard Spencer's little empire LARP. I don't want to rule over or be supreme over any other group, because I don't want those kind of bad relations with them.
Yeah, exactly. We we don't see it as our role. Urban Mover says if you fall for the trap, it's like the N-word for blacks. That's exactly what this Nazi word is. It's a slur. To identify as a slur is to accept that you are a slave and that you are spiritually and materially conquered. Now, I know we're materially conquered, but I do think we still have a fighting chance spiritually.
So if we just wake up.
Yeah, exactly. We'll be fine. I mean, things are bad now, and we're all very nervous, and we feel very unsafe for good reason, because people like Gilbert are in charge, and they think that us expressing opinions is equal to violent genocide, and then they feel justified to kill us because of how we feel, because reasons, and steal our stuff, right? So obviously we're afraid. We have every right to be afraid.
Which is why, but I'm not afraid. Non-Europeans don't lecture Europeans on anything moral, because every time it's happened, it's always resulted in us getting fucked. So that SJW nonsense will stop. Every time I see it, I neither forgive nor forget. It will stop. That's not negotiable.
Look at what Mike said. Everyone wanted to genocide Germans after World War II.
That's right.
Like, I don't think people realize just how peaceful Germans are. I've known a lot of Germans. They're very stoic people. They like animals. They're very pensive. They're very good at science.
We like to be left alone in very insular communities.
They really do need to be ruled over by someone of their own tribe, just from my own experience and knowing Gandalf, like, he's more German than I am, and you could just kind of see there's something about the character that an outsider cannot relate to. Even other Europeans have a hard time understanding where Gandalf's coming from. Not me. I get it. So it's a live and learn type of thing. Like, some people shouldn't be governed by other people. And this was what Swami was all about, was self-governance for Aryas or nobility. We want to govern ourselves. And
isn't that better than being ruled by British merchants and the Raj?
Yeah, I get pretty triggered when people say that the Raj improved India. It's like, no, it improved Britain temporarily, or Great Britain, or whatever you want to call it.
Gilberto Salgado, the arrow of history tends toward democracy, liberty, and equality. Well, fuck off with that. The arrow of history tends toward nowhere where you know it goes. I am pissed off.
Well, how many times do you think you have to say that before it becomes true, Gilbert?
I'll be honest. Like, this is why I got pissed off at Aaron. Like, when you make judgments about my family, as if you have some moral right to do tikkun olam or anything like that. I don't accept that right.
Yeah, you guys aren't moral. You don't even understand what morality is. We're the ones who are moral. You're shit. You're filth. Just deal with it. You created a disaster.
We managed.
All the disasters happening now. entirely your fault, yet you blame us, right? You're so goddamn immature, you can't even take responsibility for your own actions. And now you're in a game of political hot potato that's probably one of the funniest things I've ever seen in my entire life, and possibly all my lifetimes. So, I mean, come on. Come on now.
Why can't Europeans just take care of Europeans? Why is that supremacist?
Because certain people want to make a bunch of money and steal all our stuff and rape all our women, right?
Yeah, which is why our men need to be men of order, honesty, and character, and we just take care of our own house. And you know what? A man like me can get along with people of other tribes so that we can make deals with the best of their men so that, they can manage their own stuff. I'm one of the people that can do it so that in an age and an area where like our continents are very filled with many different cultures, we can all have our space, all have our stuff, and our men who are leaders of our tribes can trade with one another, and there's not a lot of conflict.
Colbert suggests we start calling you the Kaiser. How do you feel about that?
Cult Bear. Well, I tend to like his way of thinking. Rook laughed, so Rook seems to like it. So if Cult Bear and Rook both like it, let's do it.
Very based. Martial lore has affirmed that Jews invented Islam. Very based take there. Yeah. It's pretty goddamn obvious when you take your emotions out of it, what's actually going on. So, and once you see the truth, you can't unsee it. So,
And let me be clear. All right. And I'm an honest man. I say what's on my mind. I don't hide much. I don't hate Jews. So if you're accusing me of hating Jews, you're fucking lying. I don't hate other tribes. Yeah, other tribes piss me off and annoy me sometimes because like they don't. It's frustrating when people are in your space and they don't understand your ways. And I'm a very territorial person. I'm an introvert, so I'm sensitive to territory and space and how people relate in space. Which is why, like, as when I got really red pilled about like all the issues related to the agendas via feminism and homosexuality and all the other stuff, because I was kind of blue pilled about that for a long time. But when I really hit me in the face about, oh my God, all these things are like destroying our ability to have culture and family that function, it's kind of like rocked my world for like 2 or 3 years. Because like, I'm the way I'm wired is I look at these things as very private. They need to be very measured and contained. And I had no idea that the social programming on these things had gone so deep and violated our kind of sensibilities in such fundamental ways. So it's like really important that, we have control over those things in our culture and that we handle these things correctly. Uh, yeah, it's just, we just got to recognize that, white European people need to rule just only over ourselves. And we have so much healing we need to do. Like the endless tearing down that our men do of one another. It's awful. I hate it. Like I don't do that I talk about ruling and dictatorship. And even if I am in that kind of position or involved in that kind of position, I'm not here to like bash heads and do whatever. Like I'm just here to fucking suffer and work my ass off to make sure everyone can kind of work together well. And I'm here to learn. If people bow and have better ideas and can do a better job than me, fine, I give it up. I'm not here for money and wealth and all that stuff. I just want our people happy again. I want to be able to live in dense communities where grandma lives 3 blocks away, auntie lives 3 blocks away, so that when my wife has her 6th kid in 5 years, she has plenty of help so she doesn't go into postpartum depression.
well, we don't want to set up a situation of our selection. So ultimately, what we want is everyone having breeding at replacement rate. But I understand what you're saying.
Well,
We
if
do
we
want
want
to have
it,
families. We don't want to
well,
be bringing too many people into a racial group because then you're reincarnating souls that are actually not part of your ancestral lines into your genetics. So that's not a good idea, but that's something that's more complex. We can go into that later. And the journey from where we're at now to real effective scientific government is probably going to take at least 100 years to actually get it going at 100%, but we can get I would say 70 to 80% of the way there within less than 10 years. So it does.
God,
It took
that'd be great.
It took a long time because it was done indirectly, right? It was always
Yeah.
done "subversively," quote unquote, or behind the scenes. It's not really gonna be the same deal once people are out in the open just getting things done and solving problem after problem after problem, right? There's a lot of things that could be done, i.e., freedom of association, proportional taxation, etc. So these things would solve most of these dysgenic problems of welfare whoredom that we all have come to resent.
Should we call this Dharma 2030?
Oh, that would be great.
That should be the thing. Dharma 2030. Instead
I
of
know.
Agenda 2030, Dharma 2030. Seriously, come on. Adopt that now, please.
Yeah, I like it. I know the Indians will go for it. I'm not so sure about the Europeans, but I'll just give them a few. We'll give them a bit of time. They can just take the intro pill. It takes a bit of time to digest.
By the way, I had to comment on this. I'm so sorry I forgot. That Aryan yoga thing. Oh, like where Stephen McNallen just doesn't know anything about Indian cultures, and he's repeating some 19th century fucking charlatan. Oh, like McNallen needs to stick to like loving like heritage artifacts from like ancient Nordic archaeological digs and stop commenting on the future of European religion.
Well, it's like you got to wonder where are these people even coming from. Like I saw a video by Dave Martell as well, where he's like, people are saying that people want to go back to Indian Dharma because it's Aryan and it's an uninterrupted line, but that's not us, man. We're a part of Dharma, but we're not the same thing. And he's basically saying like it's easier to be in Dharma than it is to be in their little Asatru LARP. It's like, wait a minute.
Well, Dave Martell is far worse than Stephen McNallen. Like Dave Martell is not. I don't know if he's a bad guy, but it's like the problem with these people is because there's no quality control, and these people really, aren't trained how to think, how to weigh stuff. It's like even if you look at the sagas and the Eddas, right? And I haven't studied them to the same degree that other people have. I mean, of the people that are in the Asatru sphere, the only person who I think has a little, I mean, he gets a lot of things wrong, but I think his compass is where he's trying to go right is someone like Mark Puryear, because he tries to really look at things and really get into like the historical time period. I mean, he's trying to put his mind in the right spot. But in general, it's like what written sources we do have about the pre-Christian European religions are written by the Christians who conquered them. So they're actually probably Christianizing our ancient pagan ways.
However, through science, we can get tons of information about it. So if European quote unquote paganism, which I don't advise calling it that, just call it natural religion. If that is what you seek, we will use science as well as proper interpretation of historical record to give that to you. And we're happy to do it.
At best, because I've read Guido von Leest, okay, and he's got a lot of problems because he's looking at the world from within 19th century romanticism. So I have to control for that. I mean, he seems to indicate, and there could be some evidence for this, and this is the only thing I'll say tangentially. So this is very weak hypothesis. So do not quote me out of context on this. I'm prefacing all my comments. This might be investigated, is that the runic languages might have been based on, perhaps, maybe certain dancing or prayer rituals or positions people use to access certain spiritual forces. I might go that far, but that's only a hypothesis. We're going to have to really think about that, because the runes are definitely sacred, and they have and there's probably a deeper layer of meaning to them. I mean, we can probably gather that because of the way Tolkien went about creating his own runic language for the Lord of the Rings universe.
Yeah, we understand people are feeling quite like kind of a cornered animal and they just want to kind of lash out. And you've already lost so much that you're afraid to lose anymore. We're not trying to take anything from you. We just trying to preserve things and get people on the right path. Because if you're on the path that's never going to lead to enlightenment, you're basically going in circles. And that makes me sad to see people go in that direction, because it's just going to wear you out and you're not going to get anywhere. You're going to keep on going in circles. It's going to feel like you're moving, but you're just just standing still in a way, right? So
Is
take
it
it.
true that you're trying to make Europeans into Hindus?
People always say that. I'm actually against that, because, as we could see, the Europeans that have converted to Hinduism have not done the greatest job to uphold Dharma, right? Like it's not easy to meaningfully convert a religion, which is why I suggest that people don't look at it as a conversion, look at it as a reversion, and understand that back along the line of your ancestors, they practiced a natural religion, and it was lost over time, but in some way it still endures in a sort of distorted form. But you can have what you call a reform, and this is something that's happened many times in India. There's been a loss of Vedic Dharma or Arya Dharma, and then it gets reformed. It's why we look at things as cyclic. Sorry, sometimes it's really great, and then it kind of falls apart, but then it gets restored. And we're way off that. We're just like accelerating away from Dharma now, but we could easily get it back, and then we just go back to that normal cycling where it's always pretty good, but over time you just sort of lose the exact original meaning of things. Metaphors get taken literally, literal things get interpreted metaphorically, and then that's where the confusion starts, and that's why you need someone like me to come back and say, hey, this is actually the way you want to be looking at things, and just sort of reset things on that right path. And that's all we're trying to really do, is give you the right starting point, so that you can then, in a way, I don't want to say create your own religion, but the architecture is there for you to kind of fill it out with your own uniqueness. We just want to get you at a point where you're not going to hurt yourself or anyone else in that process. So the way I was explaining it to Gandalf is, it's like having a sandbox. You need the edges, you need to have borders to the sandbox, but you want a really big sandbox so that you can have as much fun playing in it as possible, as much freedom of expression as possible, without accidentally shooting yourself in the foot in the process.
It's very instructive that when Carl Jung was talking during the conservative revolution, the 20s and 30s, and he was sensing that like a fascist Volkish uprising was sort of going to appear in Europe, especially the German world. He was, he wrote a famous article called Wotan and Hitler that everyone should read, in which, even in 1934, he was warning that the Hitler storm was too much fury and not enough wisdom. And if we're going to want to return to these archetypes that are based deeply in the European soul, that these old gods sort of represent, and we still sort of feel that way, even though we've lost a lot of that religion, and we should be very wary of people that think they can recover it, like McNallen and Martel and Purrier and all these people, that if we're going to do it this time, we are going to revive any of that stuff and put it in a format which will help Europeans rather than hurt them. We need to do it very carefully, with wisdom, with science. Science is not like materialistic here. We're talking about science in a deep sense, like a holistic understanding of our life and our culture as a people. And this is why a more dharmic Vedic approach is not a bad way to go. Would you rather go a biblical approach? I think not.
So Vance has challenged you to a boxing match, so I thought I would bring up a little, I don't know if it's a cartoon or what you want to call it, from Swami Dayananda, who got challenged to a fight by some fucktard. And it's actually traditionally considered improper for priests to engage in any type of physical battle. It's just not done because it's improper, it's disgusting, it's barbaric. So Swami broke his sword in two, but he really didn't want to fight, right? So don't ask priestly people to fight. It's a disgusting, barbaric, degenerate thing. So please don't do it.
Yeah. I mean, just because John Vance might be able to punch me out doesn't mean he has good ideas. What's the point that we cater to our most beastly instincts? Like, Doovid challenged me like, oh, you're being too idealistic. No, I'm not. I have a totally dark view of human nature. I mean, that's one of the reasons I'm so insistent on a very certain approach to, governance. Like, you keep R and K selected people apart.
To be
So
honest,
they
I'm
don't.
pretty sure I could take John Vance. The few times I've had to be physical, it's been basically a TKO. So I am
Well,
trained in unarmed combat, so I don't want to do it, but just saying. Yeah, exactly.
well,
So John is our selected. He's part of the. He's one of the people in our group who is simply not fit for statecraft, right? Because he doesn't have enough discernment or vision to really do it properly, right?
yeah, and Cade has talked many times about why his judgment of thinking that going into a mosque is a good idea is really awful.
But we have to
Like,
view that as our own. It's our own failure in a way, because he's a lost sheep of our tribe who's wandered over to the wolves, who are dressed up as sheep, who are going to gang rape him like the bitch that he is when he joins their quote flock. But yeah,
well,
that,
if he
that's
chooses if he chooses that side and remains on that side, it's just a loss we're gonna have to take. And as the meme on Facebook goes, nothing of value was lost.
well, the reality is that I would like to be able to help everybody, but I understand that I can't, so I have to reserve my empathy for the people who are worthwhile, and then they'll be able to help their own group of people, and it will spread out. Just be patient. Eventually, these things will percolate down. It didn't take too long for me to get SJW out there into the popular vernacular, did it? And think about how much easier of a time you have expressing yourselves now that you have that word that you didn't have before. So just be patient and have faith that this we were the ones who were in charge before when things were good, and they'll be good again when we are in charge again. So have a little faith in your own people, because that's what we are. We're the
Would
best.
you rather be would you rather be ruled by your average group of Germans like Jen and myself and Cade and some other people, or anybody in power now? What's a better bet? I'll take any random German on the internet over anybody in power now.
I'll take a cat over the people in charge now.
Germans are better than cats, so that's offensive.
Even though I'm highly against toxoplasmosis, I would still prefer a cat. So just saying,
Oh,
okay, cool. I'm getting pretty tired, so I'll get
I
wrapped
am
up.
too. We got to
Do
wrap it up.
you have any final words for the audience?
Truth and doubt. Love you, love you, all. Yeah, love the audience. Donald Robertson, good guy. Gilbert, yeah, you pissed me off, but that's part of life. I'm okay with that.
It's
John
okay,
Van,
Gilbert. Gilbert, we don't hate you any more than we would hate a snake that bit us. We just understand your nature, and it's time to stop the LARP. The whole cargo cult civilizational LARP of infinite parasitism. It's just going to end us up all dead. So just get used to it. It'll be better for everyone this way.
Donald Robertson, we'll talk to him another time because you had a great stream. Insane Hermit, I know you were triggered. You're normally such a cool guy. Love you all too. But that's about it. Claire, yeah, just stop promoting such stupid ideas and only talk to Europeans, please, about what's good for Europeans instead of assuming what you know is best. It's offensive to impose a foreign legal system on us. I don't like it.
Yeah, my
Anyway.
advice to Claire is just keep on doing exactly what you're doing, because I don't think anybody could make my ideas seem seem better than Claire Kaw. So I have to say, thank you, Claire.
The gay Hindu comes a close second, man. He's
I told you if there was ever going to be a Hindu that went up against me, it was going to be a white one or a Kosi.
oh god. So anyway,
Okay, cool. Take care, everyone. We'll talk to
Take
you.
care.
Bye
Talk
bye.
to you soon. Bye bye.